Hello and welcome back to World 360. How did the US become the world's largest LNG supplier in just under a decade? How is OpenAI's latest tech product, Sora, taking over the internet and even received praise from China's state-owned news outlet? We answer these and more in today's episode. So first up, the US's fast rise to LNG dominance. In just a few years, the US has become the world's biggest supplier of liquefied natural gas or LNG, surpassing Qatar and Australia. Now, LNG is primarily made up of methane, which is a greenhouse gas 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Therefore, LNG is viewed as one of the many fossil fuels standing in the way of climate progress. Not to mention, hydraulic fracking is what has led to a substantial increase in US domestic oil and gas production, including LNG, over the last decade. Fracking, an act long criticized by climate activists, is a drilling method used to extract petroleum oil or natural gas from the earth. Fracking in the US is particularly widespread in North Dakota, Pennsylvania, and Texas. But if we put the climate aspect of this issue aside, there is also major geopolitics at play. In January this year, the US overtook Qatar as the world's largest supplier of LNG. And this is a big shift given that natural gas was relatively scarce in the US years ago, and American companies were mainly importing gas from countries like Qatar and Australia, which are naturally abundant with gas fields. In fact, in 2005, when US natural gas production began falling, natural gas prices increased above $10 per million British thermal units, or MMBTU, and sometimes as high as $15. That's 1.5. But by the mid-2010s, natural gas production in the US was 50% higher than the level in 2007. By 2016, the US began exporting LNG, but in much lower volumes than Qatar and Australia. However, all that has changed in the last couple of years. This is important because, as we've seen with the Russia-Ukraine war, oil and energy resources can be used as a tool of diplomacy. We saw how decisions by the OPEC Plus on production cuts during the war annoyed the US, with President Biden going as far as to say that there would be consequences for Saudi Arabia, which is viewed as sort of the leader of the OPEC Plus grouping. When the Ukraine war broke out, the US and the European Union formed a task force to help reduce European reliance on Russian energy. And in 2022, the Biden administration ensured Europe at least 15 billion cubic meters of US LNG supply. Recently, US think tank CSIS came out with a report on the geopolitical significance of the rise of US's LNG dominance. If you look at this graph, you can see just how quickly the US has been able to increase its share of LNG imports in key markets, especially Europe, which is the dark blue line. The report also claims US volumes can help alleviate supply risks because American cargoes don't pass through the Persian Gulf or the Suez Canal, which, as we've seen of late with the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea, are vulnerable to security threats and becoming choke points. US LNG shipping avoids some of these risks as it can transverse the Atlantic to reach Europe as well as the Pacific for East Asia, states the report. For our second topic, we're looking at a new text-to-video AI product which is taking over the internet and may be playing into the US-China tech rivalry. Now, OpenAI, an American company known for creating ChatGPT, just rolled out Sora, which is a text-to-video AI product. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, invited internet users to give their most bizarre prompts, resulting in some wacky videos generated by the company's new model. While tech billionaires such as Elon Musk poked fun at Sora, the new tech model also grabbed the attention of Global Times, China's state-owned news outlet. A report published in the Global Times on 17th February titled "Sora Showcases Potential of AI Technology" stated that Sora could reshape the entire movie industry and also mirrors the disparity between China and the US in generative AI. This report claimed that though the US has a leading edge in software and hardware development, China has a greater lead on AI application and data collection. Currently, Sora is not accessible to the general public, but only cybersecurity professionals known as red teamers who will evaluate potential areas of harm or risks have access to this product. It also wasn't too long ago that OpenAI CEO Sam Altman delivered an online speech at a conference held by the Beijing Academy of Artificial Intelligence. Just last June, Altman said in his speech at the conference that China has some of the best AI talent in the world and called for global cooperation in setting up regulatory guardrails for this fast-growing emerging technology. He also noted the current geopolitical tensions between the US and China, saying great powers may have their share of differences. We see great potential for researchers in the US, China, and around the world to work together to achieve the shared goal, he added. Now, these geopolitical tensions have played into certain trade restrictions imposed by the US and China on one another. For example, last October, the US curbed the export of more AI chips, including the NVIDIA H800, to China. Meanwhile, entrepreneurs like Altman intend to build a network of factories to produce AI chips. Now, this is quite ambitious because OpenAI's rivals like Google and Meta outsource manufacturing of their AI chips to contract fabricators such as TSMC in Taiwan. For our last topic, we're looking at Russia's latest gain in Ukraine. On Monday, Russia captured a coke and chemical plant in the heavily defended Ukrainian town of Avdiivka, which is located 15 kilometers north of the territory of Donetsk. This was seen as Russia's biggest gain in its nearly 2-year-long war against Ukraine after the capture of Bakhmut in May 2023. The liberation of Avdiivka has made it possible to move the Ukrainian front line away from Donetsk, the Russian Defense Ministry said in a statement following the capturing of this critical town. Russian President Vladimir Putin reportedly congratulated the Russian military and troops on such an important victory, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told state media shortly after. Meanwhile, Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky of the Ukrainian army said in a statement on Facebook, based on the operational situation around Avdiivka, in order to avoid encirclement and preserve the lives and health of servicemen, I decided to withdraw our units from the city and move to defense and more favorable lines. Shortly after this, it was reported that after months of requests from Ukrainian officials, the US is now working towards providing Ukraine with powerful new long-range ballistic missiles. The US has already approved $44 billion in military aid for Ukraine, and the US Congress is expected to approve another $60 billion. The development also brought attention to Ukraine's newly appointed 58-year-old commander-in-chief, Syrsky. Holding the rank of Colonel General, Syrsky was appointed to the top position on 8th February 2024, just earlier this month, which was part of a major shake-up of the Ukrainian military leadership. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that he'd be replacing the then Commander-in-Chief General Valery Zaluzhny, who was nicknamed the Iron General. Reports say Zelensky and Zaluzhny had disagreements over issues such as conscription, which refers to compulsory enrollment of the public for military service. Zaluzhny's replacement, Syrsky, is an experienced Ukrainian military leader who has led the country's ground troops since 2019. He played a role in Ukraine's success against Russian forces in Kiev, the capital, during the initial phase of the war, as well as Ukraine's counteroffensive in Kharkiv in 2022. Thanks for watching. This is Pia Krishnankutty for ThePrint.